It's okay. I'm not angry. But I am disappointed.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Boys Season 5, Episode 7 video. There are a whole bunch of WTF moments, Easter eggs, so we will break it all down. Just as all seems lost and Homelander seems like he might win, Butcher is asking you to lock in one last time. There were a couple big deaths, but it still feels like most of the main characters are wearing a lot of plot armor. So everybody press F to pay respects to Frenchie. The way they explain it on the show, the boys would not theoretically be successful in stopping Homelander in the finale if it were not for what Frenchie did in this episode, because without him, Sage doesn't help. They're not able to finish their plan, perfect their plan to give Kimiko the powers of Soldier Boy to depower Homelander. So without him or his sacrifice at the end of the episode leading him away from the vent where he was about to go look, like he was about to break into the vent and find them before she regenerated, he would basically still be unstoppable in the finale. Even Ryan probably wouldn't be able to stop him, because a lot of people are now like, what about Ryan? He's supposed to be super powerful. The way that he beat him so easily in a previous episode makes it feel like that's the show saying there's no way that Ryan could actually beat him. My early theory is that the boys will ultimately be successful in stopping Homelander, and they will say that Frenchie's sacrifice is the reason why they were able to do it. So they're really trying to make his death actually mean something to the show. I would say after him, President Calhoun is probably like the next biggest death. He was an important character, but the character himself within the context of this show, even though he is the President of the United States, was a relatively minor bit character they mostly used for comedy. It is something that Homelander does in the comics. At the end of the original Boys comic book, he ends up in the White House and kills the president. So even though the Boys TV show has changed the comics a lot, they're doing some Easter eggs for the comics. They also got rid of She-Line and Dognop, but they're not big characters. I never thought of them as big characters, so I don't really consider them like really critical deaths in the episode. But the episode is titled The Frenchman, the Female, and the Man Called Mother's Milk, a reference to Frenchie, Kimiko, and Mother's Milk's names in the comics, because there are a couple of moments, particularly with Mother's Milk storyline, where he literally explains the origin of the name Mother's Milk and how it changed from the comics. So I'll explain that when we get to that part of the episode. I already talked about why Frenchie is so critical to the actual context of the episode, and Kimiko is called the female in the comics. She doesn't talk in the comics either until like the very end, where she says like a brief line and that's it, like just a little bit. On the show, they have her talking all the time. My assumption is they did that so they could have scenes like they did at the end of the episode where they're like talking to each other about how much they love each other. That's also really critical for Sage being on their team now too, because for a long time it seemed like she completely given up until Frenchie convinced her in the power of love, basically. Like he used the idea of love to bring her back to the side of the boys. So I do think that Sage witnessing their speech to each other as he was dying in her arms about how much they loved each other also helped strengthen her resolve to stop Homelander. Previously, Sage had been so burnt out on the bad run she had with Thomas Godolkin and feeling like she got duped, and love made her weak, and that was why she was really going after her Phase 2 plan and wanted the world to burn around her so she could read books by herself, all because of her bad experience with her former lover. But now that she's back on Team Boys, they have her intellect, she can actually develop a contingency plan to stop Homelander, and it seems like she will do that during the finale. The episode starts with one of O-Father's sermons, and they're practicing for the Easter celebration to unveil Homelander as God, and they're treating this sort of like a big Broadway production. So if you don't watch Broadway or you never watched the original Hamilton play, it's a great play. I think they actually filmed it, and you can watch it online now. Daveed Diggs was a big part of that. He plays O-Father. It feels like they cast him specifically as O-Father on the show so that he could go full Broadway again for scenes just like this. Like they were thinking of this scene when they cast him.
God, a God who's strong and just and American like us.
When you actually listen to his sermon, it's all about how Homelander is God. They're rebooting the universe with the joke about him floating down over the stage because they're practicing and he wants it to be perfect. There are a lot of jokes about him rebooting the universe in this episode, and it's mostly a reference to the way he's trying to reshape reality around himself as God. One of the funniest things, though, is that you learn later in the episode, almost nobody, no matter what, fully believes in him as God deep in their hearts, and it seems like they never will, no matter what Vought does or what Homelander does, and it's just making him matter, and he's just going to wind up trying to kill a whole bunch of people because nobody will believe in him as God, for real. Speak of the devil, then we go to Homelander, who's sitting in the Oval Office at President Calhoun's desk. Calhoun is still alive at this point and just tells him to use the office whenever he wants. Things get a little weirder between him and Ashley, Vice President, though, when Homelander replies in an evil kind of way, foreshadowing that he's about to kill him. He rifles off a ton of really crazy declarations and orders for them to execute. First, make his church the official religion of the United States and reminds him that he is now the one true God. I love the way when he's doing this behind the president's desk, they frame the shot like his side shot with Washington's picture in the background, just to remind you what a mockery of the USA the Homelander is making now. Basically, the government is a joke. He also wants the boundaries between church and state, the government dissolved, and the troops moved into what he's calling every sanctuary city to Starlighters, basically turning the United States into an empire. He also goes full Star Wars Emperor Palpatine during Revenge of the Sith when he tells them to abolish Congress. Like, that's literally him just going full Star Wars. And I do think that Star Wars exists inside the boys' universe, so Homelander has probably watched it at some point, and that's probably where he got the idea. He tells them to ban abortions, then breastfeeding is now mandatory, to ban all non-breast and non-cow milk. His whole rant about nut milk also feels like the writers complaining about nut milk in real life. And as crazy as a lot of his ideas and his orders are, some of those things are things that politicians in the government and the US president have done recently in real life, where the boys will try to do something funny and parody what's happening in real life, but real life will ultimately wind up being weirder than the boys ever was. Even though it seems like The Boys calls a lot of stuff that happens in real life really, really accurately, a lot of times they've actually revealed that it's just a coincidence because they wrote all this crazy stuff that Homelander is doing in these episodes years ago before anybody in real life ever actually did them. So it wasn't like people in real life did something crazy, then The Boys wrote it into a script, and then they filmed it. They filmed it, they wrote it a long time ago, then people in real life did this really crazy stuff. That is how wild real life has gotten lately. Homelander then tries to force back Ashley to read the president's mind to see whether or not he's truly loyal to him, which she won't do. Then they imply that regular Ashley sells out the president by lying and say that he doesn't trust Homelander, who then kills him, de facto making Ashley the new president. So RIP President Calhoun, even though the show treated you like a complete joke the whole time you were there. Homelander then wipes his hands off on the White House furniture, like antique furniture. This is really, really big deal. And they mostly use this storyline, as crazy it is, killing the president. They mostly use this to show you back Ashley versus Ashley, with the two of them battling it out over control of the body.
Those are all fantastic ideas, sir.
Back Ashley is unsuccessful in trying to get Ashley to do the right thing and contact the rest of the world to warn them about what Homelander is doing, because Ashley is now drunk on the power because she's been so put upon her entire life. She feels like she finally has a modicum of power and it's gone straight to her head, causing Back Ashley to claim that she won't ever speak or help her again. So we will see how this winds up ending, because I'm sure that Ashley will also have some sort of ironic ending on the show if she does wind up surviving. You can post all your Ashley theories in the comments, but all the crazy stuff that happens to Ashley just makes me feel like they're going to go even crazier with her character in the finale. Then we finally get our big Gen V crossover. They finally bring the characters on the show. They've been talking about them all season. They're finally here, but they don't really do much of anything. Maybe they'll be more active during the finale. We will see. Mother's Milk and Annie meet with Marie and Jordan, and when she says reports of her awesomeness have been greatly exaggerated, that feels a little bit like the regular boys writers poking fun at the Gen V writers, like they're poking fun at that show, who a lot of people expected after Gen V Season 2 for Marie to actually be able to stop Homelander, do something to potentially kill him, because they kept hyping her up on that show to be Homelander-level powerful. They literally called her a god-level soup. But because it would be very unsatisfying for a character who has never really interacted that much with Homelander to begin with to stop him instead of the main characters on the show you've been watching this whole time who've been trying to stop him episode to episode every single season. So they're going to take Homelander down. It's going to be the boys' main characters, not like the side Gen V characters who just jump in at the very end of the story. So it really just feels like a couple points this season with a couple characters like the Worms character and then Marie herself sort of poking fun at this fact. No, your expectations for me are too big. I'm not going to be doing that much stuff. We learned that Jordan has been tracking O-Father recently, and he's been at his studio for a weird amount of time, like he has not left, but it's all in preparation for the Easter celebration and these crazy focus groups, because they're trying to find out whether or not people will actually buy into the idea that Homelander is God. And turns out, for the most part, the answer is no, they will not. Annie then tells the two of them to get lost, they're done, they're not helping anymore this season because Marie's powers are unreliable and she can't control them properly, and Marie then tries to use Annie's original audition tape for the Seven as a way to disprove her statement and that she can still help, and references the Dawn of the Seven Blu-ray bonus features, like real deep-cut lore here. This is like a reference to the Batman v Superman or like the original Zack Snyder Justice League movie having the audition tapes for Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, all those original characters on the Justice League. Marvel has also done the same thing with the Avengers characters on their Blu-rays too, where like on the Avengers movies you've seen their auditions over the years for like all the real big characters. A lot of this is also part of Annie's arc this episode, being super jaded, and her being jaded later in life was also a thing in the comics too, where she goes from being a super hopeful and good character to being way more cynical by the end of the boys' comic book story. When they go back to the boys' hideout, Huey's listening to more Billy Joel. There's a lot of Billy Joel in this episode. My assumption is that Eric Kripke is just like a huge super fan of Billy Joel, so he just baked that into Huey's character since season 1. So like over the show, that's why you've seen so much Billy Joel stuff coming from his character. He then learns that Frenchie and Butcher are trying to push Kimiko's powers to their limit using the enriched uranium, the one that Soldier Boy dosed Homelander with at Fort Harmony, and we get some more lore on Soldier Boy's powers to take away people's powers, his burst ability. This is meant to be a retcon to the show and some stuff that they tried to seed earlier this season. There might have been some more footage that wound up being deleted scenes that kind of set this up too, but if you go back and you watch all the season 5 episodes, you can see where they were trying to set up moments like this, like Butcher watching the videotapes that the Russians had on Soldier Boy's experiments. But the new lore here is that Soldier Boy only gained the power to depower people, like his blast ability, his nuclear blast ability, after he got his Compound V abilities as a secondary mutation. Back in the 1940s, Vought doses him with his version of V1. He gets his immortality, his Captain America level strength, speed, agility, like basic Captain America powers.
They'd stick us soups in there to see if we could survive an atomic bomb.
Soldier Boy then said that Vought tested their abilities with the enriched uranium device, and then the Russians, after they captured him, continued testing uranium on him for another 10 years until he developed the ability to give off that blast and depower people. And the way that he depowers people is by just literally burning the Compound V out of their bodies. So Butcher, using the Russians' notes, feels like there was a way to do this with Kimiko too, because it was a secondary ability, like a secondary mutation for Soldier Boy, and they think they can do it for Kimiko as well. Dose her with enough enriched uranium that she develops the burst ability. They spend so much time in this episode, it's like such a fundamental part of the arcs in the way that Frenchie goes out in his sacrifice that it feels like this will ultimately be successful in the finale and Kimiko will actually be able to depower Homelander, and that's what they're trying to foreshadow. Also remember, losing his powers is Homelander's greatest nightmare. All season, in almost every single episode, he's had some kind of moment where he's referenced that in the background, that he doesn't want to lose his powers or he doesn't want to be like everybody else because he feels like his powers are what makes him special and he's nothing without the powers. Even in the first episode, A-Train, #Justice for A-Train, told him that he would be nothing without his powers. So wouldn't it be more fitting for the show to actually depower him? Doesn't mean that he'll survive, only means that at some point in the finale he will probably lose his powers. They then mention that Sage has been self-medicating since last week's episode by stabbing her brain, making herself stupid, and watching Love Island reality TV episodes since Homelander got the V1. When Butcher calls the Gen V characters JV League, that's Junior Varsity, and the original version of Gen V, this is a bit of an Easter egg, was going to be a G-Men TV show, much more of a G-Men TV show from the comics at Godolkin, and they were going to call it The Boys Presents Varsity as the title. That later then got turned into the version of Gen V that we all saw. They then make plans to capture O-Father to try and get another one-up on Homelander, who makes a milk reference, a lot of milk references in this episode. He gives up all hope, and Butcher gives him a little pep talk using the Spice Girls, which it sounds like he absolutely loves, but the writers who wrote this scene for him sound like they absolutely hate Posh Spice, because he drags her so much during this. But his whole pep talk is that Posh Spice was terrible, zero talent, but would never stop trying and ultimately emerged as the most successful Spice Girl later in life. Back at the Seven Tower, Homelander meets with the Deep and basically fires him from the Seven, disbanding the team, who doesn't mind that he killed Black Noir too either, and it doesn't even matter because he wasn't close with this version of Black Noir, like he wasn't a friend the way that the first one was. And they basically give the Deep his own version of the firecracker scene where she begs Homelander to stay, and he ultimately winds up killing her because he's kind of disgusted with her. It really does seem like Homelander was getting close to doing something like that with the Deep too, where basically he sells out everything that he believes in, all of his morals, he betrays all of his friends in service of Homelander, who just casts him aside and could care less about him. And by the end of the episode, he has absolutely nothing and is well on the way to the entire world hating him because of the video that someone took of him abandoning the person who drowned. We will get to that in a second too, because there is a very big Samuel L. Jackson cameo scene. But you can kind of see how the Deep is kind of like the new version of Firecracker. He's basically taken the position that Firecracker was in a couple episodes ago. When the boys sneak onto the Vought Studios lot, they're filming a new movie where Starlight is the villain and someone else is playing her. I actually think it's a TV show, but this is Eagle the Archer, who we saw in previous seasons. He's a Hawkeye parody. The show that they're filming is called American Eagle, and it was written by a Taylor Sheridan AI, which won't take notes apparently. I think it's meant to be more of a parody of Yellowstone.
The Taylor Sheridan AI wrote the thing, and it does not take notes.
We get a bunch more jokes from the Worm, who was also complaining about AI in Vought Studios a couple episodes ago. They revealed they're canceling their show and a lot of other shows because Homelander is rebooting the universe. You could also look at this as a joke about them doing the Jensen Ackles Soldier Boy Vought Rising prequel show. Like, we gotta cancel everything. We're canceling the show. We're canceling the boys because we're doing this other big show that's coming up. That's not the real reason why the boys TV show is ending. Like, it just kind of reached its natural conclusion, so it is time to end the boys. But I did like the jokes about this being Taylor Sheridan slop. When we go back to Sage, she stabs herself in the brain to make herself dumb again, makes references to Epstein's death and the circumstances of his death not being an accident, and their plan to irradiate Kimiko being terrible in a long shot, and they use this to set up Frenchie's pep talk all about love and them to bond over their shared love of reality TV shows, particularly relationship-oriented reality TV shows, like the really trashy ones. When she says love is a logic error, that's her just referencing PTSD from the Gen V Season 2 ending with Thomas Godolkin, who she was in love with, but who spiraled out and went full Nazi, and she was forced to abandon to his fate. So she feels like she's worthless because love makes her weak and her powers not work the way she wants them to work. She makes a bunch more jokes about Stormfront getting it on with both Homelander and Soldier Boy in their weird family relationship that I can't talk about in the video without getting it banned. And all the talk about love making people unpredictable, do unpredictable things, makes me feel like that'll figure into the finale too. Like, even though they made it seem like Ryan isn't going to be real critical to the finale, it would be weird if Ryan isn't also there and Soldier Boy isn't also there too, because he's in cryo right now by the end of the episode, so he'll probably be nearby relatively. So I am expecting to get some sort of Soldier Boy, Homelander, Ryan family weird moment before things go down for real. But eventually Frenchie is able to win her over, which is, I said, why they're trying to foreshadow the idea of his sacrifice ultimately being the reason that they will be able to stop Homelander in the first place. So the whole idea is that Frenchie's sacrifice was not in vain, like it's critical to them winning this. Also, maybe tell Sage to take a shower at some point because she smells like urine. Back at Vought Studios, Butcher notices that one of the psychics named Synapse is there and they have to hide themselves from him, so he has Huey rant about a bunch of Billy Joel so they don't discover their plan to capture O-Father, but it doesn't hold up. Synapse winds up capturing them and they basically have to turn the tables on him, but they use this for a really great cameo scene with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, more supernatural people coming back to the show. It really does feel like the whole point of this scene with Synapse was to have like a really cool Butcher and Jeffrey Dean Morgan scene. I'm not a really massive Billy Joel stan, but you can all let me know in the comments if you agree with Huey's ranking on his best of Billy Joel list. Things get really weird with the psychic when we find out he's a total degenerate and he's into being dominated, like he would love to get in a fight with Butcher, but he's trying to help Homelander execute his purpose to become the new god. He changes into the form of Kessler and using Butcher's memories talks about the really messed up stuff that they did when Kessler was still alive in the CIA. His whole goal in airing Butcher's dirty laundry memories is to try and turn Huey against Butcher. He tells a story of how in the CIA, Butcher and Kessler led a team of men to capture someone, to kill someone, but he led his team to his death, and ultimately, even though he could have saved his team by canceling the operation, he pushed them to a victory, and only he wound up surviving. So the idea is that he feels like his teammates were all collateral damage, and the psychic is trying to make Huey feel like it's going to happen to the boys in present day, like, you're going to die too, and only Butcher will survive. But remember, the key to this is that he was still successful, so I think they're also trying to foreshadow that Butcher will ultimately be able to stop or kill Homelander in some way.
Lot of dead canaries in old Billy Butcher's coal mine.
But I also think that Huey will survive. Like, there'll be a couple people who definitely have plot armor to survive the finale, Ryan being like one of the other big characters that will probably survive, but I do think that Huey will be one of the people that walks out of this. They're then able to turn the tables on Synapse using his own past and the messed up stuff that he did to his own family to get him distracted so Butcher can then kill him with his tumor powers. The only problem is that he was able to read Butcher's mind and learn about their plan to give Kimiko the ability to depower Homelander, so he was able to warn Homelander, who's after them now, and they're not able to contact Frenchie in enough time to allow them to all escape. There's a lot of plot going on in this episode. You can definitely tell they're like ramping things up super fast in the last two episodes. Like, we got to cram in a whole bunch of stuff going on here to close it all down. We then find out that O-Father has been focus testing Homelander as God. They get a bunch of people to see what a mishmash of America thinks of Homelander as God, with a bunch of the psychics watching over, in addition to She-Lion and Dognot, who are there to secure people, quote unquote, or kill people either way. Absolutely love the cheesy, bad film version of a Homelander commercial. Like, it is so Bush League. I love the way it's all got this temporary visual effects. Like, they filmed it specifically to make it look bad. And when you actually watch what's happening in the commercial, the whole idea is that Jesus is telling Homelander that he's too tired to go on with reality and leaving the duty of being the savior to Homelander, and crowns him with his crown of thorns. They make it seem like it focus tests really, really well. Like, everybody seems like they absolutely love Homelander as their savior, but then the psychics reveal that only 6 people out of these like 30 plus actually believe in Homelander as God. So like, basically nobody around America is going to believe in Homelander as God. Like, very, very small portion. He then gets super pissed off and orders O-Father to kill the non-believers, which makes me feel like it's foreshadowing for the finale. If most of America won't believe in him as God and his ideas crumble around him, won't that just push Homelander to try and kill all people, like a bunch of people? We then go back to Homelander's apartment, and he's looking at a redesigned version of Vought Land, calling it Homeland. The next phase of his Reboot the Universe, explained to Soldier Boy how it's all going to work. It's basically Vaught's version of Disneyland. I was literally in Disneyland like a couple days ago, so this is hilarious, because a lot of the stuff that Homelander talks about, the way the rides work, the way the parades work, are exactly the way things work at Disneyland. Vought is a company inside the universe of the boys, basically operates just like Disney as a giant corporation. It'd just be like if Disney's version of the Avengers were real, had actual superpowers, and they made it seem like they were just making a bunch of fake movies, but it was really a bunch of superheroes running around being terrible. He then tells Soldier Boy they're going to be calling him the Father of God, and the real joke here, though, is that Soldier Boy wants nothing to do with any of this. It's way too weird, like it is way, way off the map, and he's just going to bail to Colombia for the rest of all time, like he's never coming back. Remember, he's immortal, so he can live forever. And the way they play this is that Homelander is mostly upset that Soldier Boy doesn't want anything to do with him or being his father. And remember, he seems like he wants that love more than anything else. Homelander has both mommy and daddy issues, also some issues with Ryan too. Love the joke about the new Soldier Boy suit, which he absolutely hates. Like, I am definitely not going to wear that. He makes a Supernatural reference when Jensen says the old Impala. Then tries to give him the classic breakup speech, "It's not you, it's me," until Homelander tries to strangle him so that he can put him back in his cryotube by the end of the episode. And it is basically the same thing that he did with Stormfront, too afraid to let her leave, so he trapped her inside his apartment like he is trapping Soldier Boy now.
You're too weird.
You can let me know what your predictions for Soldier Boy in the finale are, but I feel like this is going to turn Soldier Boy back to the boys' side. Like, oh, that's it now. Like, I'm not helping you anymore. I was only helping you get the V1 because it's what Clara wanted, not because he wanted him to have the V1 or he cared about him as a son like a father would. Then they give Mother's Milk one of the best speeches of the season, if not one of the best speeches of the entire series, when he's trying to give Annie a pep talk about why it's worth it to save the people, even though they're complete idiots in this focus test. He then uses a version of the save one person speech that you get in a lot of superhero stories, using an example from his childhood when he saved a pigeon from dying that ultimately survived and flourished, but it got him the nickname Mother's Milk that people use as derogatory, but he viewed as a good thing because he was able to save the pigeon. So he's basically trying to tell Annie that it's worth it to try and save people, even if you're just able to save one person, for all the terrible stuff that happens to you on the way to saving that person. We get a very, very messed up, very weird she line in Dog Not scene where she tries to lick herself like a cat. Then they seem like they're about to hump each other, but it really seems like they're more into just sniffing each other's butts, like that was the kink, just sniffing each other's butts. Then after Homelander orders them to kill the group, they save them like Annie and Mother's Milk saved them, killing both She-Line and Dognot. So RIP to them. They weren't ever really big characters, and I wasn't really into a lot of the jokes they used their characters for. Like, they were really, really over the top. Back at the boys' lair, they finish Kimiko's final treatment with enough time for Frenchie to stick her and Sage in the zinc-lined HVAC tubes so that they can hide from Homelander and he can sacrifice himself to save her long enough so that she can regenerate and her powers will work and they'll be able to take his powers away. Him not being able to see through zinc is something from the comics, and they haven't really referenced that in a while. Like, they used that on the show earlier in previous seasons, but it hasn't been a real thing lately. Mostly just meant to be a parody of Superman's weakness of seeing through lead. So RIP Frenchie, he did tap on the door softly to lead Homelander away from the vent where they were hiding because he was about to rip that vent open and find them. He also has his own version of telling Homelander off in the way that A-Train did, basically giving him a version of that same speech, telling Homelander that he's nothing, he's never done an interesting thing in his entire life, like you've never danced once in your life. Tries to slow him down with the radiation, but he knows that it's not going to ultimately stop Homelander, like he's just trying to get Homelander to leave, doing whatever he can. So he insults Homelander, and it feels like that does him more psychological damage than any of the radiation ever could. The other reason why Homelander takes off right after this and doesn't look around the facility more to actually find Kimiko is because Frenchie said that she was successful recreating Soldier Boy's powers, and she's on the way to actually get him back at Vought Tower. So the whole idea is that he takes off looking for Kimiko. When she finds him dying from the radiation poisoning, she's fully healed at this point, it seems like. She'll head into the finale with the ability fully working, and they spent so much time setting this up during the episode, it just feels like it is going to be successful. Huey and Butcher then return just after he's died, and they end the episode with Kimiko crying over his body with the sound of her cries over the black frame. My only real notes for the episode is that because it's the penultimate episode, they should have killed off way more really big and a couple main characters. Like, the show almost feels like, even though there is a lot of blood, it is kind of a bloodless show, if you get my meaning. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any Easter eggs or references to the comics or anything else that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. The really big reminder is that episode 8 next week is the finale, so my full video for that will post after they release it. There'll probably be a trailer for that in the next couple of days. I'll try to do a video for that as soon as possible too. I'm also working on a brand new Marvel Vision Quest trailer that they released at the upfronts recently, so I'll try to get that video out as quickly as possible too. Everybody click here for that new video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for all my boys episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.